If you read any history to do with the part of the Balkans once dominated by Yugoslavia, you'll notice that it has been known for most of its history by the name Illyria. It derives this name from its ancient inhabitants, the Illyrians, which often feature as side characters in the histories of Greece and Rome. So who exactly were the Illyrians and why did their name survive so long in the first place? The name Illyria was inherited from its extensive use by the Roman civilization, who originally conquered the Illyrians. They themselves inherited the name from the ancient Greeks, who first used the term in their historical records of the region. The historical record is either disappointingly vague or full of century-spanning contradictions. Mythology and history are often intertwined, and for that reason our written records have been bolstered by archaeology. Most surviving works come from Greek writers who overlapped with the Romans in a recorded tradition spanning more than 600 years. The name Illyrioi first appears in a sort of maritime roadmap called a periplus, describing a tribe living around Lake Shkodra, with whom other related tribes are eventually lumped in with, including some groups in the far south of Italy. The word is of uncertain origin, but the Greeks constructed a mythology around an eponymous ancestor named Illyrios, son of the more famous Cadmos, whose stories are heavily associated with snakes. Unsurprisingly, serpentine imagery feature commonly in Illyrian excavations. The Greeks describe the Illyrians in typical uncivilized fashion, meaning they don't live in cities, drink wine, or speak Greek. Based on place names that have survived, our best guess is that they would have spoken various Paleo-Balkan languages related to Greek. Archaeology does help us confirm that they weren't very urbanized. Material culture and burial customs paint a picture of a tribal society with a minor elite that is often disrupted by migrations. Some of these migrations are recorded in history or found in various myths, like the arrival of the Celts in the 3rd century BCE. A tribe called the Autorete remember this event by describing a plague of ill-formed frogs raining from the sky, possibly referring to the Celtic Skordiski, which is both terrifying and hilarious. The archaeological record places the Proto-Illyrians in the Balkans long before the Bronze Age, but more sophisticated polities aren't evident until the 6th century BCE. These thrived on piracy or mercenary activity in Greek wars, which state structures were built around. As nomadic pastoralists, these were likely very tribal, but times of intertribal cooperation often made them quite formidable. Tribes tended to maintain migratory hill forts used for temporary refuge, which are then repurposed in times of war. The kingdoms of Epirus and Macedon saw them as particularly fierce enemies. Tribes like the Enkele, Talanti, and Ardei each took their turn dominating the coast, sometimes appearing under different names by different authors. The Dardani held sway further inland, and various others were scattered about all the way towards the Venetic and Celtic peoples of the north. Helmets worn by mercenary armies have been found all over Illyria, likely made in Greece to equip their hired soldiers. But none of this is known for certain, and requires a lot of educated guesswork. As time goes on and the stories of the Illyrians gets more detailed, we get the names of famous kings like Bardilis and Cleatus of Dardania interfering in the politics of Macedon. Famous King Philip II even spent time as a hostage in an Illyrian court. Glaucias, a king of the Taulanti, personally raised the deposed infant king Pyrrhus of Epirus as his son, later famous for defeating the Roman legions in battle. The record is filled with these kind of anecdotes, portraying the Illyrians as kingmakers who needed to be bought off, pacified, outsmarted, or tricked in order to be a successful ruler. Roman interest in the region became very much intertwined in its wars against Carthage, Macedon, and other Hellenic kingdoms. The coastal Illyrians were led by a pirate king named Agron. His wife and successor, Queen Tuta, earned the Romans' wrath when she had one of their envoys executed, and over a period of separate wars, the pirates were pacified and their leaders replaced by Roman loyalists. But it was really the memory of the Carthaginian leader Hannibal and his invasion of Italy through the Alps that convinced the Romans they needed a tighter grip over Illyria, lest an enemy do the same thing from the east. When the last coastal king, Gengtius, made the fateful mistake of supporting King Perseus of Macedon in his war with Rome, they now had the perfect excuse they needed to destroy both in 168 BCE. Coastal Illyria was now well within Rome's territorial purview, even governed for a time by Julius Caesar. His son and heir Octavian would later campaign against the Illyrians on his journey to becoming Emperor Augustus. It was ultimately during his reign that the remaining Illyrians were subjugated, but it turns out the Illyrians had one more fight left in them, teaching the Romans a thing or two about the dangers of drafting a subjugated population into the army. Under Bato the Decete, one of these auxiliary forces revolted against Rome's rule, soon joined by various others whose leader was also confusingly named Bato. Thus, this great Illyrian revolt became known as the infamous War of the Batos and made the empire bleed. But eventually, the empire's manpower and attrition forced the exhausted Illyrians to surrender. Rome divided the population into smaller civitas to make them easier to govern, while deporting the rest into slavery. But their Romanized populace continued to be among the most important of Rome's provincial holdings. They contributed skills in mining and animal husbandry and supported the military frontier, building roads that proved indispensable to the Roman war machine and its mobility between east and west. Now, as history nerds, I think this is a safe place to say that there's something undeniably captivating about tyrants throughout history. Well, our friends over at Real Life Lore have a similar fascination for the most insane and eccentric rulers, dictators, and kings of the modern era. And on their Nebula original series, Mad Kings, you can certainly see why. My favorite episode of the series by far covers the bizarre life of Ugandan President Idi Amin, the murderous dictator who was not only brutal but just downright weird. He is best remembered for claiming to be the King of Scotland and even throwing himself a big coronation ceremony to prove it. The best part about Mad Kings is you can watch it over on Nebula for free for 3 days by simply using my link to get there. Myself and all of the other creators on there actually own part of Nebula collectively, so signing up helps me out and the rest of us to make anything from complete narrative fiction and informative factual content you won't find anywhere else. My videos also go up on Nebula early. You can check out Mad Kings or any of our exclusive content for free, and after your 3-day trial, my link will also get you continued access at just $6 a month if you choose to do so. But if you do sign up in this December, that will be a further 50% off at just $30 a year, which is $2.50 a month. Nebula is about prestige content, not just more of the same you can find anywhere else. So do yourself a solid, check out Mad Kings and come and see what we're building at go.nebula.tv/Suibhne or by scanning the QR code on screen. In an effort to find out if some components of ancient Illyria survived the ages, the studies of archaeology, human geography, and linguistics have found some evidence to suggest that modern Albanian languages may have some links to an Illyrian ancestor. Whether or not the mists of time have obscured that evidence enough to form a scholarly consensus on the issue, nobody really knows for sure. But with continued work, the picture will no doubt become clearer. And hopefully one day the information in this video will be out of date. I hope you've enjoyed this new format as a brief overview of the Illyrians. Let me know in the comments what else you'd like us to cover in these shorter episodes. If you like what we make here, please consider signing up to support the channel on YouTube memberships or become a patron, which are both linked below. And don't forget the like, subscribe, and share trifecta to appease YouTube's algorithm.